Welcome to this lesson in function calling. Function calling allows you to more reliably get structured data back from the model. It can call multiple functions in parallel. You can use your functions to create assistants that answer questions by calling external APIs. You can convert natural language into API calls and extract structured data from text. In this lesson, you will create a function call that calls a news API. The assistant will query about current news. The assistant will call the function to get current news, and the assistant will summarize the news. I mentioned we are going to use APIs to retrieve news. We can use gnews, which provides news APIs. You will need to create an account. You can create an account for free. I already have an account. Once you've signed up with gnews, you will have an API key. We will use this API key to make calls to the API. We will copy the API key, and in your .env file, you will need to create an entry called gnews_API_key, and there you paste your API key and save the file. Now let's look at the endpoints. gnews provides two endpoints. We will use one of them to search for news. We will use the search endpoint. We will provide our search expression as well as the API key. You can, in your own time, review the documentation for this API. For this lesson, you will need to install the Python library python-env so that you are able to call the license key for the news API. By now, you would have already installed the Python library for OpenAI. You can check the version of the Python library for OpenAI by doing pip show OpenAI grep version capital V. For this lesson, we're going to call our news API. So this is the method to call the news API. You will need to import JSON, import requests, import OS, and from the .env import load.env. Then we will load our environment file, and there we'll pull the API key for gnews, and that API key, which we retrieve from our environment, we will pass to the endpoint as well as the search expression on which we are searching. So we'll make a call to this endpoint. If it is successful, we'll get a response of 200. Then we'll pull the data and load it as a JSON. We pass the Python object and pull out the articles. Well, from the articles, the title, description, content, the source name, the date of publication, and any reference URL. We'll append each of these articles to a list or an array and return it. So we'll return it to our agent or assistant, and our assistant will take the data and summarize the news. So we need to make sure we run it. We need to provide JSON format definition of our function. I've called it function_JSON. The type is function, and the function has a name getNews, a description getNews from API, and the parameters we will pass, or the arguments, is of type object. The properties, the actual argument, is a topic of type string, and we provide a description, and the property or argument, which is topic, is a required field. So this is the structure of the JSON file that will provide to our assistant. The assistant will reference it to understand the function that we are calling. We create a connection. We have our helper to display our response. We have a helper to check the status of the run. As long as it is in queued or in progress status, we say keep calling and checking for the status of run. We will have a new status. The new status will be requires action. So we call that helper function. We'll create an assistant. The name of the assistant is News Agent of the World. The instruction is you are a news agent and summarize the news. The tools is a function call, so I'm passing the name of the function, definition function here. So this is function underscore JSON. It could be any name. I've just said function underscore JSON, and this is the tool it's going to use. Basically, it's this method we have defined called getNews and the model. So we run this. The assistant has been created. This is the instruction. You are a news agent and summarize the news. It's pulled the method getNews because we said the tool to be used is the function underscore JSON. So it's used that JSON file. And it knows the required argument is topic. We create a thread. Then we'll pass a message. Our message is going to be passed on the thread. The role is user and the content is read all the available news and provide me with a summary of the UK AI news. So that's the message we are going to pass. That one is for later on. I'm just checking whether we've run all the cells. So this is the message. And we'll run it. So we take our assistant and the thread. We check the status of the run. This is a new status of requires action. This is the details of the run, the assistant ID, the instruction, and here it says required action, submit tool. So it's saying we need to send a tool. The tool calls is this function. The arguments will be topic is UK AI. So in our get news, we'll pass in the search expression will be UK AI. So we'll need to extract from this payload the expression to be passed, the argument, as well as the function name. So to do that, we need to pass required action. So that's what I'm doing here. The run.requiredAction.submitTool outputs.tool calls, and that's what we pull out. And from there, we're going to pull the function name and store it in my function. This is function name I'm pulling out. This is the name of our function. I'll pull out the function arguments, then extract the actual argument, which is this, and this is what we'll search on. I'm going to create a dictionary map to map the function name get news to the corresponding Python function so that our API can understand it. So here it will return the actual function. It's more dynamic in that way. I could have done this, called the function directly and passed the search expression, but this one is more dynamic. So we've just called our get news with the topic, which is here, UK AI. And the response is from our endpoint. This is our response. We'll pass we can decode it. We'll pass that response back to our run, and we'll say this is the tool ID and this is the response. Now it is in progress. So it is the assistant is summarizing the response that we have sent from the API. It's completed. We retrieve the message. So here, so the assistant is saying, here is a summary of the recent UK AI news, and this is a summary of the news. We can also cancel a run, and as usual, we can retrieve our assistant, delete our assistant, and thread. What if we passed this message? And the message is, what is the sum of 2 plus 2? Fairly simple message. Do you think it's going to call the function and call the API? Let's try it. I'll place another message on the thread. Then I'll run the assistant against the thread. I'll check the status. Aha, it says completed. This is the JSON from our previous run, it says required action. What does it say now? It says required action none. Let us check the message, and it has responded. The value, the sum of 2 plus 2 is 4. So it's been able to process that query, that message, without making a call to the function. So if there's a need to call the function, then it is going to call the function. Otherwise, if there's no need to call the function and it thinks it can process the message, it will do so without calling the function. So in this lesson, we created a function call that calls a news API. The assistant queried the current news. It called the function to get the news, and it summarized the news.